Hello there, I am the Biblical Translator, and so called because I like to take scriptures out of the Bible and make them easy for you to understand. But today I wanted to talk about a bit of news, but because it relates to miracles and God, I decided to incorporate it on this channel. So there's a 32-year-old South African lady, and this happened in South Africa. And she's expecting a government grant of £85 to help her with her studies. She wakes up and finds £850,000, the equivalent of £850,000 in her bank account. And instead of questioning it, she sees it as a miracle of God. She says, she's been praying for money, and she found this £850,000 in her account, and as far as she's concerned, God answered her prayers. And I was wondering, there are some people who they say if you have faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. So if you pray for lots of money and lots of money finds its way into your account, are you wrong to accept it? Well, she went to a supermarket, and apparently she left her receipt on the till, and the teller picked it up and saw the balance in her account and made an assumption that she should not have that money. So they called the police, and she was arrested, and they said she was going to do 5 years in jail. Instead, she was fortunate enough to have lawyers, and they actually got her off, so she didn't have to do time. She did some community service. But my point is that, if the banks have made a mistake and you have been praying for money, how are you going to know? I mean, to be honest, if I saw that amount in my account, and it obviously says who it's coming from, it's not like it's coming from an aunt who's died, or you've received a legacy from somewhere, or you've done the lottery and it's a lottery win. You can see who it's coming from. So if it's coming from the place where you normally get your grant, wouldn't you question that and say, hang on a minute, this doesn't look right? I think for me, if I saw £850,000 in my account, I'd be scared to use it. But she wasn't scared to use it. She claimed that money as hers, and she went on a spending spree. Now it's interesting because she claimed that God gave her that money, but then what does she spend it on? She spends it on parties. She spends it on scotch, on alcohol. She spends it on designer clothes. Now, if God gave you that money, wouldn't you spend it a bit more consciously? I'm just saying, don't want to judge, but I'm just saying. So it comes like you can use God as an example, or as a scapegoat, to meet, as an excuse then. And then, but your behavior is demonstrating something else. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting piece of news because it's happening quite a lot where banks are making mistakes. And if money goes into your account, you're not expecting it, and it's not yours, even though it's gone into your account, you cannot use it. You're going to have to give it back. She's lucky she was able to keep the money that she used. She didn't have to pay any of it back. She just has to do community service. Probably because she didn't spend much of it. I think the balance on the receipt when she got caught out was 14 million rand. I think about 80,000. 800,000. So she might have spent about 50,000. Whatever she spent, it doesn't say. She got away with it. And it's interesting because I think the newspapers were a bit peed off that she actually got away with it, because they were saying she spent £100 a day on scotch and she spent it on designer clothes, and she spent £600 a day on this and that. I mean, why go into all those details? Obviously, they resented the fact that she actually spent the money so frivolously and so quickly. But it's interesting because just supposing, you have a lot of bills and you have been praying for this money comes in, you use it to pay your bills, and then you find that you have to pay it back. I remember when I got sent a cheque for £10,000, and they said it was payment for one of those, those big banners where they put your faces on, you're like modelling for a company. So they said they were using my face on a billboard at Gatwick Airport, which is in the UK, and they were going to pay me £10,000. So I thought, that's good. And I wasn't working at the time, I was redundant. Had been made redundant. So they sent me the money, but what made me suspicious was they sent me a cheque for £10,000, no covering letter, no contract, scratchy writing on the envelope. Now, some people would have taken that £10,000 and thought, great, I've got £10,000, I'm going to deposit it. But the thing is that they were asking for, I think, £2,000 as an agency fee by Western Union. Now, why didn't they take their £2,000 out of that cheque and send me £8,000? So I contacted the bank and I said, is there any way when I deposit £10,000 in the account that it clears after 7 days, that after that period it can be retracted, it can be taken back? And they said, actually, it takes 3 months. Even though they tell you 7 days, it takes 3 months for a cheque to actually clear in the bank. So I found out it was a scam. What would happen is I would put that deposit in my account. It would look like I had funds. Out of that, I would take out the 2,000, pay them their agency fee by Western Union, which is like cash, and that £8,000 would be in there. But because it's fraudulent, that £8,000 would then be a debt. Well, the whole £10,000 would, because the bank would want £10,000 back. So luckily, I didn't touch that money, and I didn't send them the £2,000. But it just shows you, when you see money in your account and you're not expecting it, or it's too easy, or it's too quick. People say to me, look, if you're blessed, you're blessed. If it was me, I would have gone and spent it. But I'm glad I didn't, because can you imagine me owing them 10 grand after I've gone and spent that 10,000 on something stupid? So all I'm saying is that, when money ends up in your account and you're not expecting it, just double check the source. Make sure it's yours, because you don't want to be accused of fraud. Although she was arrested for fraud and theft, and I don't see how it can be fraud and theft when she didn't directly steal it. It was in her account. Technically, it was hers to access. But I think maybe that's what the lawyers got her off on, the fact that it was actually a mistake. She didn't spend all the money, obviously. I don't know what would have happened if she had, but yeah. And I would like to think that if you did get that amount of money, that you would invest it in a way that when you're ready to pay it back, you have it. So that's all for now. I thought that was an interesting piece of news, but don't get too greedy. These are the end times. And people will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money. So we have to make sure that we don't get too self-absorbed and too gravelicious, and we take what's not ours. And in the end, we're worse off than how we started. And that's all for now. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.